All right, guys. So I'm going to announce a new band. Some of you might have seen this because I pretty much posted one little thing in the community section about the band. So this band, original band, is called Hill God. Okay, Hill God. Now the name of the band could change. I'm not sure. It could change in the future. All I have to do is change it. So I have one song out already, and I want you to check it out. So go to the comment section. I'll pin the first comment as the video. Now, if you've already seen it, this is a newer version. So I'm going to explain all that right now. You're going to want to check out this version if you already checked the old version out. And then we're going to talk about how mixing and, just kind of go off on different things. So this is my first attempt to basically record everything myself. I recorded everything myself. I wrote the song, wrote the melody, wrote everything myself. Did the drums right here. And then, this is a learning process to where it's like, that's why that first mix wasn't that good. So I basically, redid the mix, and I'm going to take that one offline. So the new one that's up, check this out. This is going to be really cool. I added a basically sort of analog component to it, which we call saturation, right? So this emulates basically a non-digital format because digital tends to be harsh, right? That's what we want to avoid. So like I said, I use this drum right here. Then I just recorded everything, and then, the new mix, I'm really happy with the way it's sounding. So go check that out right now. Subscribe to that channel if you're into Black Sabbath kind of stuff. This band is new music, It sounds like, think about it like this, right? Black Sabbath is no longer producing new music, even though I wish they would. I wish they would record an album. And then you have like 50,000, bands that copy the Sabbath sound. So I think there's a space in there for like someone who can, sing clean like Ozzy does. So this is kind of Ozzy inspired vocals, but I try not to copy Ozzy too much, but I think you can hear little inflections here and there. So kind of has that Into the Void format to where it's like verse, 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 and then there's like a big part in the middle where it kind of picks up, the song picks up, right, like a like a march part, a breakdown march part, if you will. So check that out. Check that channel out. Like I said, subscribe to that channel, watch the video, comment, on it if you want, as long as constructive, comments. But I'm happy with this new mix. So if you heard the first one, I think you're gonna like this one because a lot of this is about the mix is really important, right? When you record, the mix is really important. I could take Black Sabbath raw tracks and mix it in a way that it sounds like shit, right? And it might not be appealing to you. So if the mix, see, when someone hears something new, right, there's like a laundry list of things where they all have to sort of work together and be right, or else your mind basically rejects it and goes, oh, what's this crap? Okay, whatever, right? So a lot of that stuff we talked about already. Is this artist known? Is this do I give a shit about this person? You know what I mean? Sometimes it's race, right? Sometimes it's different things. But if somebody actually takes the time to listen to the song, little things can basically ruin the experience and turn the singer, turn the audience off. Right? And one of the most important things is the mix, right? If the mix isn't, if your art isn't sort of presented properly, right, it's not going to get received because there's sort of a miscommunication of what's going on in your head, of how you perceive that art, how you hear it, and then when you record it, it's just not the same, right? It didn't, somehow it got lost in translation, and then you play it for somebody and then they don't understand it. So they need to understand it. They can only understand it when it's basically in sort of a conducive format in which they could understand. You know what I mean? The vocals can't be too loud. The snare can't be too loud. So it's got to be, it's got to be sort of good, for the lack of a better word, right? It's got to be sort of good and everything, right? It's got to have, the song riffs have to be good. The production has to be good. The vocals have to be good. The vocals can't be too loud. It has to sit well in the mix. So the first one didn't do that. So I found it, like I said, I added some analog stuff to it, and then it sounds very, different now. So I think that's gonna be cool. So I am gonna record a lot more songs on here. So this was kind of like my first thing to where could I even do this? Like, could I just, record with this and do this? I'd done this with like covers before, but never an original song. Now I have kind of a workflow, right? In my DAW. DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation, right? I use Reaper. So now that I have a workflow, newer songs will keep coming. So I'm basically gonna do like 5 or 6 songs. This song is actually a throwaway song. So it's kind of like a B-side, if you will, right? I kind of wrote it and then I was just like, okay, this is like a throwaway song, and then this is a good test song to basically get the workflow right. How are you going to mix this? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that, right? So an example of where the production ruined the song can be found even in Black Sabbath, right? If you ever listen to Born Again, there's a lot of cool songs on there, right? Sorry, I got some phlegm in there. But it's so badly produced and it's so badly mixed that it sounds like a demo. I mean, who doesn't like, almost everybody likes that, what you gonna be, brother? Zero, the hero, right? Everybody likes that song. But the way it's presented to you, right, it makes it sound like you have to make an effort to listen to it, right? And then people don't want to do that unless they're just hardcore Sabbath fans. Most fans would listen to it and go, what is this? It sounds like shit, and then just move on, right? And then, of course, they've tried to remix it and stuff like that. But sometimes, recording it, if it's recorded wrong, no matter what you do, it really can't be, remixed, because sometimes, the balance is off, right? This is all the things that I had to face. When I did the first version, I listened back to it and then I was like, oh, wait. It sounds like the vocals are too loud. But when I heard it here, the vocals weren't that loud. So, when you put it on YouTube, YouTube adds a little bit of its own sort of, every time you put it on a different platform, right, that platform could add its own slight little EQ of whatever is happening behind, right? It could be, it could even be compressing it. We don't know what happens on the YouTube side. Anyway, that's the thing to where, production can kill art. If it's not produced properly, especially music, it has to be easy on the listener, right? They're not going to come up to you and go, this song has promise, but dude, it sounds like shit, right? It's produced like shit. So people will just walk away, right? Like we say, people, vote with their feet, right? They just walk away. They won't say anything. They'll just walk away. So anyway, I'm excited about that. And then I'm going to have 4 or 5 songs, probably an EP pretty soon, because now I have this song, and then I kind of found out how to mix it properly. So check the song out. And like I said, if you like this kind of music, subscribe to it so that you'll know. I'll probably push or, talk about any new songs or EPs that come out on that channel, because I had to create a separate channel in this channel as well. So, but it'll be easier if you just kind of, subscribe to that as well, right? So that you could be, and like I said, this is kind of cool because, not too many bands are doing this, to where some bands write Sabbath type material, but then they won't have like a singer that can sing clean like Ozzy. They'll have like some kind of, weird vocal or something like that, right? Kind of like a death metal vocal or something like that. So I think this is good, and I think this is a good platform for me to, whenever I come up with like Sabbath riffs, for me to sort of Sabbath type, that type of stoner rock, doom, that kind of stuff, to just put it out there. So I'm excited about that because it allows me to just basically do it all myself. Not that I don't want to work with people, right? That's not what it is. Is that listen to the song. And if you're a musician, you'd agree that there's no way in hell that I could have made that with like 3 or 4 other people. Do you know how much effort it would have taken? I would have had to give them the song and then sat there with them and be like, no, I want the beat like this. The bass should do this. Of course, I'm willing to let people put in their own stuff as well, right? Because that's what, a band is. But a lot of times they need direction, or they might put something in there that basically, ruins the song. Right? They might put something in there that ruins the song. So, you can't let your art be corrupted by other people. So it's really hard to find, 3 or 4 people that can do this. And also, you'd probably have to pay like $500 to record it, right? So I'm able to do all of that by myself right here. You know how powerful that is for, an artist like me, who can just kind of, okay, I can just do it all and put it out. Like I said, I would love to give this to a bunch of guys and then go on tour. So that might happen to where I'll just produce like an EP, right? Probably like 6 or 8 songs, maybe 2 EPs. It would take 2 EPs, I guess, to get to like 8 songs, and then I could just bring people in and be like, all right, it's already been done, it's already been recorded. Here you go. I just need you to execute. That's all. And somehow, that's so hard to do, and that's asking a professional. See, this is why we need professional musicians. I'm not saying professional. Remember, professional, pro. These things have different meanings. Professional meaning the professional in attitude, right? I'm not talking about someone who can just like do it perfectly, or do it much better than I can. Because honestly, I'm not really I couldn't play drums to that whole song in like a live setting. There's no way I could do that, but I could do it here. I did have to piecemeal it a little bit because digital drums allows you to sort of piecemeal it. That means that I didn't do the whole song in one take. I shouldn't tell you this, but I didn't do that because I don't have the skill level and the stamina to do that all in one take. I would have to just practice it over and over again for like days and days, and then hope to nail it. So but a lot of times, a lot of these, even famous songs like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, right? It's done in 3 different sections. So that was done as 3 separate recordings and then put together. So piecemealing it is okay. It's been done, a long time ago, even in the analog days. So try not to piecemeal it too much. But as I get better, right, and then I'll try to add more variety so that it doesn't seem like it's piecemeal together. So as I learn more about mixing, cooler mixing secrets, production mastering secrets, and if you heard the first version, this version it's gonna be completely different, night and day, right? So anyway, that's the thing. Production is important so that people understand your art the way it was meant to be, right? And you don't want to give people a chance to project your art in any way possible. So that can happen in production, that can happen in singing, that can happen in all this kind of stuff, right? So this band, like I said, Hill God, we're going to focus on kind of the, one thing I want to say is that how like the 80s music is always get ridiculed because of like, oh, the D&D kind of the theme, that kind of stuff. But in stoner rock, that is very, that's always been there, right? For like 20 plus years, right? That theme has always been there. So it's not like cheesy like the 80s music to where it's like, the D&D and stuff. But the newer kind of stuff, it's kind of done in a cool way. So I did put, the artwork, of course it's, death obsessed, that kind of stuff, But that is sort of the, the topic for something like this, right? We can't be talking about. But I will explore a lot of different things. So basically this is cool. And then I'll also do another band. I might do different bands like this, right? Maybe, I might do like a Megadeth type band or, Metallica Megadeth type thing also. But this is cool. But the stoner rock genre is huge. There's like 50,000 bands in that genre. There's so many labels. I would say that is still one of the popular genres that is not, of course it's not mainstream. It's not like deathcore, like all, whatever, else, modern metal kind of, stuff. But there is a huge, community around that kind of that fuzzy guitar sound that basically, Black Sabbath kind of pioneered. And then, a lot of other bands, like Blue Cheer, that kind of stuff. A lot of 70s bands really use that fuzz, kind of thing, right? Hendrix was the first one to use it, obviously. I do actually have that first kind of Hendrix pedal, but I can never get it to work. So maybe in one of these EPs I'll do it. But moving forward, I'm probably going to put out a bunch of stuff. At least an EP for now, unless no one gives a shit, then I have to give up, right? That is going to happen. That is going to happen because, that could happen. Hopefully, some of you guys will be interested or, some other people will be interested because... I think people want to hear new music, but maybe they're just not willing to listen to it from an unknown person, right? So, I mean, that's the thing, with new music, it's always going to, you always have to listen to it a few times before you understand it. But people don't have the patience to do that, right? So anyway, guys, Hill God, right? I chose that name because, it just sounds like a total kind of stoner rock kind of, name, I think. There's a lot of, like, in stoner rock, there's a lot of imagery, like, like nature and things like that, other than the demons and it can even get political. So there's a lot of stuff there that can go on, about the world. I'm not going to get political, but, about the world and things like that. So I think it's going to be cool. Basically, it's oriented towards that SG kind of sound, that kind of, all these bands, right? Blue Cheer, Black Sabbath, Soundgarden, because Soundgarden sounds like Sabbath basically, and then like all these other newer stoner rock bands where whoever they are out there. I was thinking about getting an orange Super Crush 100, but then by the way, I'm gonna make another video right after this about how I actually recorded the whole thing on that little tiny orange speaker. So I'll talk about that in the next video, which I'm gonna make right after this. Okay. So you might want to check it out just for that. That you recorded with that, yes, without even connecting to an external cabinet. If you know what you're doing, that's all you need. So I was thinking about getting the Super Crush 100, but I think it would be kind of overkill for this space here, and it's like like this big, right? And my Marshall DSL-1 is only like this big. So if I get something this big, I'm not going to have room for it here. And it is solid state, but like I said, I was kind of impressed with the 1 watt solid state with which I recorded. So I seriously thought about it. I was like, because it's $4.99, and then I was like, okay, I can beg my wife to buy it for me, and she said, okay, you can get it, because I don't have a job. So now I'm like, and my birthday's coming up, so I was like, all right. But I backed off on it. I was like, $4.99 for something here in which I'm not even going to have room for, and it's like this big. And then I really want the tube version, but the tube version, obviously costs more. So I think I can just keep recording with that little thing, and it's amazing how it sounds, right? So I will talk about that in the next video. So the orange amp, right? So I did record it, like I said, with orange amps, and then the solo I did use the Laney because what happens is that there's not enough distortion from the orange for the solo, because you need a little bit more fluidity there. That's where we hit the limit. I mean, it's a little thing like this, so you're gonna hit the limit. But probably the Crush Super Crush 100, you won't have that limit, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, maybe one of these days. So what would be cool, I'll wrap it up with this, is that if I could find a bunch of people and then form a band around this. I actually tried this already. See, the problem with this is that, the problem with bands is that, like we talked about, the professionality, right? Let's get back to that a little bit. The professionality and mentality, meaning that, and please don't take this the wrong way, right? Please do not take this the wrong way, but I just need people to execute, right? I just need people to execute. I don't want to know what you would do or how you want to change the song. And anybody that's not professional doesn't understand that, because they think that being in a band is fun. Being in a band is not fun. It's work, right? Ask anybody who's made it. They put in 16, 17 hours a day, either writing songs or recording or, going on tour and things. So it's actually a job. So it's not fun. So anyone who thinks that, oh wait, I want to have fun, be in a band and have fun, right? That's, sort of an unprofessional kind of, those are your people that are the Craigslist people that are kind of unprofessional. They don't understand. So like I said, if I get somebody in here, what'll happen is that then I can't use that song anymore. This actually happened to me, to where I formed a band here a few years ago, very much like this Sabbath band, right? And we played like Into the Void. I played guitar and sang. And then I got a drummer who was really good. He's one of the coolest drummers I played with, really, really good. And then a bass player. right? The three of us. And then I would just come up with a song every week, just like this song, right? I would just come up with them and go, here you go, here you go. And then what happened is that now those songs, I think I deleted them or I don't know where they went, is that once you take it to a band, right, even though you wrote the song, right, it sort of becomes their song. You know what I mean? Then there's this whole sort of, oh, that band, he's still using that song that we jammed on. And then there's that kind of ugly legacy over it. So when a band breaks up, and it will, right? It only lasted about, I think, like 2 months. Because people really didn't want to even, pay money. Right? People couldn't afford to pay once a week $15. So that's how this is that the reality of it is that $15, $20 per piece to rent a room, because it's like a hobby, right? If they're not having fun, they're not going to want to put money into it. I can't pay for the whole thing. It's like $30 an hour. So even if we jam for 2 hours, I cannot pay for the whole thing. So I expect other people to put in, right? $15, $20, right? At the time, I think the rate was different. The room rate was different. But anyway, that's the thing is that, money is a big thing to where, and the band really stopped because of that. And then the bass player quit, I think, because it's like, I don't know what his expectations was, but he came in and he started giving orders and stuff. And I was like, coming from the mindset of, all right, I'm writing all the songs, but I need to let everybody sort of add their own stuff to it, or else it won't be fun for them, right? Your typical sort of startup band, right? And then I, bent over backwards as much as I could, but it still wasn't enough. So, and then the bass player left, and then the drummer was just like, dude, I don't have any more money to put into the, to practice. It's like, dude, you don't have $20 a week? No, they have other priorities. So it just broke up like that. Now I can't use those songs anymore. You see where I'm going with this? Because it has an ugly legacy to it. If I use it, if one of those guys hears those songs again, they're going to be like, oh, he's using that song? He's still doing that? So if I take this song to a band and then have it free for all, then when the band breaks apart in 2 months, I can't use the song anymore. So I'm done with that crap. So I'm going to record it all by myself. Not that I want to, but that's the only option. I'm going to record it all by myself. It's going to be, a released EP already. That way, they're not playing on it. They're just going to help me execute it live. That's all. That's your only job, is to just help me execute it live. Nobody locally would do that here, because they'll be like, well, we want to have a say in it. We want to, like I said, lack of professionality, understanding that, and of course, a lot of bands are work like this, to where I just need, people to execute, right? And of course, the thing is, if I pay them, you get professional musicians like that, but I can't afford to pay them. That's the problem here. So if I only had, millions of dollars, I could just hire people to just play, right? Money will solve all these problems. You don't have to worry about, if you're going to pay them, they'll be like, hey, what, pay? All right, I'll come and do whatever you want, right? And they'll just play, and they'll just go, I don't like that, put that in there, put it in there. They'll be like, all right, fine, right? But I think this is good, that I can just do it all myself, put it out, and then I can just hire, or, well, maybe not hire, but, try to get people that are professional, probably in LA, not around here, I think, So you have to separate those people that just want to do it for fun, and a lot of times, they don't understand this. See, this is a profession, right? This is work. This is a job, right? A lot of times they won't understand it, and you can't blame them for not understanding it. They'll actually get upset. Like I put out an ad once, and I said, the usual bit, serious inquiries only, and then I think I put something like, you have to be willing to drop everything for the band, and then somebody responded and they took it the wrong way and they didn't understand it, and they said, I have a life. I'm not going to, dedicate all my time to you. Clearly misunderstanding what I'm saying is that, and those are the people that are not professional. So, what are you going to do, right? But even if we never play live, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to put my art out. I'm just happy that I could do it all myself, right? I could do it all myself, and then I don't have to rely on a drummer, and then I don't have to be like, no, not that part. Do it like this. Do it like, because the hardest thing is for to find people who think like you, right? The reason, like famous bands, that were like friends from high school or whatever, they work out is because they think parallel. So they think, they complement each other. They think parallel, meaning that I come up with a riff, and the beat that I'm thinking in my head, the drummer is already thinking, right? That kind of chemistry you're never going to have. The only way you would have that kind of chemistry is that if both of you kind of grew up together and you listen to the same kind of bands and you were exposed to the same kind of things, and then so it's like,